Hi there, my name is Yara. Thank you so much for joining me on the Environment and Conservation Show on UK Health Radio. On today's show, I will be speaking with a gentleman named Sriyantha Perera, who is currently situated in the US, though originally from Sri Lanka. Sriyantha is one of the founders of the Rainforest Protectors Trust. Now, the missions of the Rainforest Protectors Trust is to protect land for conservation and conservation activities such as reforestation, research and education in Sri Lanka. The trust, a legal entity registered with the Land Registry in Colombo, works towards purchasing and permanently protecting privately held rainforest land, rich in biodiversity, that are on sale and in danger of being destroyed. So we're going to be hearing from Sriyantha today, who will be speaking from the US. Sriyantha is going to be sharing what's happening with the rainforests in Sri Lanka at the moment and how the Rainforest Protectors Trust is working towards protecting and conserving tropical rainforest in Sri Lanka. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Environment and Conservation Show on UK Health Radio. Hope you enjoy the interview. Sriyantha, welcome to the Environment and Conservation Show on UK Health Radio. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. And where are you speaking from today, Sriyantha?
So I'm in the US. I work as a software engineer. I'm born and raised in Sri Lanka, and I'm still a citizen of Sri Lanka.
Right. So how long have you been out in the US then, if you were born in Sri Lanka?
I've been here for about 20 years.
When was the last time you were in Sri Lanka? Because I actually visited Sri Lanka about 5 years ago and I loved it.
So I usually go to Sri Lanka every 1.5 years at least, but due to these COVID restrictions, the last time I was there was in 2019 November. Yeah, I look forward to going back again, and in the near future, I hope to go there much often and possibly might even spend most of my time there.
Fantastic. So Sriyantha, now, a lot of people are aware that there's, deforestation going on around the world for various different reasons. But what's happening in Sri Lanka with the deforestation situation, please? Like, what are the causes and the factors of it out there predominantly?
Yes. So Sri Lanka has been experiencing deforestation a lot during the last 100 years at least. In the 1800s, till 1800s, most of Sri Lanka was heavily forested. I believe the figures are anywhere upwards of 80% of the country was heavily forested. But after that, during the 19th and 20th centuries, deforestation increased a lot, primarily due to agriculture and expansion of towns and cities. So especially with the introduction of tea cultivation, unfortunately, most of the wet zone and the hill country got deforested. So we lost a lot of primary rainforest and cloud rainforest because of that. Early on, like centuries ago, most of Sri Lankans were in the dry zone, but then those civilizations were based in the dry zone. But come 19th century, most of them started moving into the wet zone and more like a rainforest area. And that also unfortunately contributed to heavy deforestation in the wet zone rainforest.
Our lifestyle, it contributes a lot to deforestation factors for many different reasons. And primary rainforest is like the ancient, irreplaceable rainforest. Like once it's gone, it cannot be replaced. It's taken thousands of years for these habitats to develop. And from what I understand about rainforest biodiversity, you can have specific trees existing in a certain, part of the forest. And on that tree would be specific types of species and biodiversity, which is just solely reliant on that species of tree. So in essence, once that tree and those species are gone from the forest, it almost creates a chain reaction with all of the wildlife and the habitats, because as we're very well aware, everything in the forest is highly connected. So it's a shame to hear, that this is happening in Sri Lanka. And I'm reading that deforestation is a very serious environmental issue and a cause for concern in Sri Lanka. So let's hear a little bit about the work of the Rainforest Protectors Trust, please, Sriyantha. Like, when was it set up and what are the missions of this organization, please?
Yes. So Rainforest Protectors Trust was set up in 2017. We registered with the land registry in Sri Lanka. And the goal was to purchase and permanently protect privately held rainforest lands bordering the Sinharaja World Heritage Rainforest in Sri Lanka. And when we talk about deforestation, one of the biggest threats to Sinharaja World Heritage Rainforest in Sri Lanka is encroachment, and encroachment mostly to grow tea. So a lot of people basically living near the border of the Sinharaja World Heritage Rainforest, they cut down the forest to grow tea. But then they gradually encroach upon, they keep on encroaching on the protected forest to expand their cultivation. So for years, we've seen this happening along the border of the rainforest, and the rainforest is continuously shrinking. And when we talk to the authorities, oftentimes what we hear is that, okay, this was a private land, so we cannot take any action. And unfortunately, so the Sinharaja World Heritage Rainforest in Sri Lanka is managed by the Department of Forest Conservation, and they do not have any rangers patrolling the borders. So it increases the encroachment and deforestation. So back in 2017, so we decided, okay, one way to tackle this is, okay, what if we purchase and protect these privately held forest lands that are directly bordering the protected area, and that way create a protected buffer zone. And then we monitor that, and that way we can prevent future encroachment.
I guess it's very similar to land grabs, land encroachment. I mean, it's the illegal movement of persons on that property or land that is not owned by them. So people are just coming into the rainforest and just claiming it in a way.
Yes.
So you're protecting these habitats by actually purchasing them under the protection of the Rainforest Protectors Trust. Is that right?
Correct.
All of this funding to protect these rainforest habitats, where is that coming from? Is that solely coming from donations and fundraising?
Yes. So far, we have protected 4 tracts of lands that up to 24 acres. And the funding has come from both private, individual donors and company corporates. I would say kind of like 50-50%. And the individual donations, we usually use the Global Giving Organization platform to run some crowdfunding projects there. And so that's how we get most of the individual donations. And then the corporates, once we find a land that needs to be protected, we reach out to possible corporates. And those are usually selected by us. We kind of make sure that those companies they are not into disrupting the environment themselves, right? We don't engage with companies that are known to have contributed to deforestation. So
yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's good to know that you're seeking out more ethical and sustainable companies to support you. And it's nice to know that they're out there and they're willing to support you. So I hope that you gather more support that you need. What do you feel as an organization now you require to push on further with your missions?
So now that we have protected 4 lands that are bordering Sinharaja and up to 24 acres, there's still a lot of work to be done. We have to expand the protected buffer zone, which we are planning on doing. But another thing that we also need to do immediately is that we are looking at setting up a conservation and education center because we have to be there present 24/7 to protect the existing lands that we purchased and for conservation, as well as monitor the rest of the area to identify deforestation and try to prevent them. So one of our top priorities now is to set up a rainforest conservation and education center. And we do have a crowdfunding project on Global Giving for that. And through this conservation center, not only we will be able to monitor and protect the existing lands, but also we hope to set up a native endemic plant nursery, because one of the issues, like if you are reforesting, if you're into reforestation, and we do some reforestation ourselves as well, is that it's hard to find endemic and native plants, native trees of Sri Lanka. If you go to a plant nursery in Sri Lanka, what you oftentimes find is very common plants. And unfortunately, some of these trees that grow in the rainforest of Sri Lanka that are endemic to Sri Lanka and found nowhere on earth, right? Those plants are hard to find anywhere in a plant nursery. So now that we have protected these lands and we have some access to some seeds, we hope to also start a plant nursery. For that as well, we hope to utilize this conservation center project.
I'm all for more forest education and nature education. I believe that's how we create the positive ripples. It starts within our own personal relationship towards the natural world, and people are seeking nature in their lives more than ever. And it's almost as if it's a fight against this machine to preserve these natural habitats, a conflict of ideologies, like on one sense, you've got this system that's influencing all of this tea production and to create more plantations, but we definitely need to implement more protection towards these habitats, because once these rainforests are gone, you can't get them back. So more power to your missions and your conservation and education center. So with these native trees that are lacking in Sri Lanka, you hope to create some kind of seed bank or tree nursery to preserve all of these species. Is it because you're concerned that, with the effects of deforestation, these species might not exist in the future, perhaps?
Yes, that's one reason. A lot of times these endemic trees are on the verge of extinction. But the other reason is that, as I mentioned, we do some reforestation projects as well. And unfortunately, we had a hard time finding suitable trees that grow in the area. So we hope to use this seed bank and the plant nursery towards our reforestation projects as well. I think long term, as to create these biodiversity corridors and protected buffer zones, we are looking at a combination of direct land purchase and reforestation as well. The direct land purchase is the fastest and actually more cost effective long term, although it might sound like, okay, yes, land is expensive, but what we found out was reforestation is also expensive in the long term, because this area it's not like planting a tree on your backyard, right? These areas are hilly and usually have at least 45-degree slopes and lots of leeches. Some people don't like leeches. So it involves a lot of labor to reforest a land. So the cost of that, like sometimes our reforestation projects, we've had to employ laborers because we've had to employ paid laborers instead of volunteers, because the cost of reforestation is quite high. And when you compare the long-term costs of purchasing and protecting existing land, sometimes that's actually cheaper and faster and scalable, because there's a lot of effort that needs to go into reforestation, getting labor, and it's slow and long term. Our hope is that we do a combination of things, like we use reforestation where we think that's the best choice there, because maybe maybe we cannot purchase the land outright. Maybe it's a government land that's deforested. So in those cases, we use reforestation. And whereas there is a private forest land that's in danger of being sold and clear cut, in those instances, we go and purchase and protect the land.
So it really depends on a case of the landscape itself and what's happening with the land. And, it all differs of how you would go in to either protect it. So these people that you were talking about that you employ, are these the rainforest guardians that are almost like the community rangers that safeguard the conservation forests under the Rainforest Protectors Trust?
Yes, so they are locals from the community, and so the Rainforest Protectors Trust, we are hoping to, once we have the conservation and education center up and running, we are hoping to get some full-time locals as rainforest guardians working in the conservation center, plus some volunteers. Right? I mean, there's a lot of volunteer interest as well. Right now, they are taken as case by case basis as needed. We have to do some new round of planting or removing invasives. Okay, yes. So removing invasives is another issue that's labor intensive, because once a forest is cleared, right, the invasives take hold real quick, unfortunately. And these invasives prevent the native trees from growing, and they kind of cover the whole landscape. And it's a massive undertaking to remove the invasives, and massive undertaking, and it costs a lot because we had to pay the laborers a lot to clear these invasives. So that's another reason why we are trying to protect the existing areas, because reforesting is quite costly.
Sriyantha, I used to work for an organisation in the UK called the Woodland Trust, and they're the largest tree and woodland conservation organisation in the UK. And they do something very, very similar to what the Rainforest Protectors Trust is doing out in Sri Lanka. I mean, they would come in and they would purchase a woodland, say if it was in danger of perhaps development, and they would use funding from the public to save that woodland. And then under the protection and conservation of the Woodland Trust, they would then plant more native species within that environment and take out invasive species. An invasive species that we have in some of the ancient woodlands here in the UK is a species called rhododendron. And this actually belongs in the Himalayan mountains. It was brought into the UK a long time ago. And as beautiful as it is, it's a very big hazard to these ancient forests. And actually, the government in the UK is giving grants out to landowners to have rhododendron taken out. So I can completely understand what you mean when you speak of invasive species, and to imagine an invasive species in like a tropical rainforest habitat, that is hard work getting that out, I'm sure.
Yes. The good news is that we don't have a lot of invasive animals in the tropical rainforest of Sri Lanka, but there's a lot of invasive plant species. So what that means is that when land is deforested, these invasives quickly take hold, because they like the sunlight. They want the sunlight. They quickly take hold, and that kind of prevents any reforestation efforts or to convert that back to a forest. That's where we see a lot of difficulty. And that's, again, as I mentioned, the need to protect the existing forest before it's cut down and before invasives take over.
It's a race against time, Sriyantha, with the work that you're doing. It really is. Right now, as an organization, besides connecting with other companies that are wanting to, support a reforestation organization and the work you're doing in Sri Lanka, what other sources would benefit the organization in moving forwards besides funding?
Yes. So funding is the primary, I guess, because we can scale this out if we have enough funds. So that is the primary need for us. But in addition, I think once we have the Rainforest Conservation and Education Center, we'll be able to get a lot of volunteers in. And that's one of the reasons why we have given this Rainforest Conservation and Education Center the priority status for as far as trying to get this done. And our goal is to somehow get this conservation center set up within the next year or two. And that way volunteers can come and help us to monitor the forest as well as to help with seed collection and native plant nursery and educational efforts, right? Educational efforts for the community as well as visitors to the sinharaja rainforest, because a lot of times today what we see is that people come to Sri Lanka, they might take a trip to the rainforest, sinharaja rainforest, but usually take a half a day, they visit the forest, come back and go home. They don't spend enough time and they don't get to learn and kind of immerse themselves in this ecosystem. And we hope that by setting up the conservation and education center, volunteers and even visitors can come and spend more time, immerse in the ecosystem, spend some time, get to know the animals, the plants. We have a beautiful river going through one of our conservation lands. Maybe they can have a bath there, spend some time, and then get to know the environment better. And that way they have a positive experience rather than having a half-day trip to the rainforest and going back home.
Honestly, Sriyantha, can I come and volunteer at your education center once it's set up? Because this sounds absolutely amazing. And I'm sure there are many people out there who are seeking to connect more, because when you think about it, it's our lifestyles that are contributing to these deforestation factors, and something needs to change. And there are so many people on the ground that are wishing to connect with more organizations and grassroots and people on the ground and working together in education. So I think it's absolutely fantastic that you are going to open this education and conservation center to inspire people. If you're not tuning in and if you don't have a personal relationship to the natural world, then otherwise you're not going to connect with it. So more power to you.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we'll look forward to that. And yes, I hope, you can also help our cause through spreading the word. And we need a lot of support. And I think, we really look forward to, what we can do. I think there's a lot of opportunity here to protect the forest as well as educate others on, why it's important, especially the Sri Lanka is considered a biodiversity hotspot. And there's so many endemic species that are found nowhere else on Earth. And all these endemic species, almost all of them are found on the rainforest and not on the dry zone. Like if you take Sri Lanka, the majority of Sri Lanka is the dry zone. The wet zone is much smaller area. And the rainforests have even shrunk more. Figures say that we have lost 95% of the rainforest in Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, the remaining rainforests harbor a lot of endemics, and some of them are called point endemics. Point endemic meaning these species are found not only in Sri Lanka, but only in a specific tract of forest or part of stretch of a river. And unfortunately, a lot of these point endemics are going to go extinct in the near future. We are trying our best to protect them, but it's a never-ending fight, right, between development reasons and conservation. And oftentimes, conservation is on the back burner when it comes to policy making. And because of that, so for example, we have a point endemic fish, a beautiful freshwater fish called Asoka Petia in the native Sinhala language. And this fish is found only on a very small stretch of river. But a recent government decision to dam the river to make a small hydro electricity power project is kind of threatening the survival of this Asoka, and we think the fish might go extinct. It doesn't look like the fish might have any chance.
It's another common cause of the deforestation that's happening in places like Borneo. It's a battle against these ideologies. You've got one world that wants to modernize and economically develop, The Natural World and the Environment and Conservation Show, one of its missions is to, raise awareness that humans themselves are nature, and what we're doing to nature initially affects human health and the human psyche. So it's a race against time. And with these donors that, these companies that come in to support you, are you on the lookout for surveyors and real estate lawyers and, donor relations specialists? I see, like, what other experts in the area do you need to assist you to move forward with your missions?
Yes, that's a good question. Right now, we do have the real estate lawyers, but some areas that we need help is through social media, help with social media and other print media. If anyone can, basically we have to spread the news, right? Spread the word, and anyone who can help via social media or print media, whatever channels, that would be a great help. And I think, as you mentioned, we do need a lot of donor relation individuals who can help us with donor relations. So yes, that's another area that I think we can benefit. And any help with tools, right? Whether if someone's able to get us good cameras or equipment, right? Drones or cameras, that might be useful as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing. Is there any other messages you wish to share or any other knowledge perhaps we haven't mentioned, Sriyantha?
One thing I can tell you, so as far as deforestation of the rainforest in Sri Lanka, right, I mentioned encroachment being one, and it is the number one reason because there's a lot of tea lands around sinharaja rainforest, and the rainforest is being constantly encroached from all sides to expand the tea cultivation. Luckily, though, oil palm around sinharaja rainforest has not come. Is kind of controlled, but oil palm cultivation has affected some other rainforests in Sri Lanka, which we are trying to address. Aside from that, one of the biggest threats to the rainforest has been through these mini hydro power projects, and a lot of rivers that flow adjoining the rainforest have been dammed, and each mini hydro project usually generates very little energy, it's about 0.5 megawatt to 1 megawatt, maybe 2, but on average we can say 1 megawatt. But each mini hydro destroys about at least 1 kilometer of stretch of river, and we've seen back-to-back mini hydros being set up, and unfortunately they don't provide enough energy, the power for the national grid, so low that even the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka and the Ceylon Electricity Board don't even mention that in their annual power generation reports. But it has been a lucrative business for private companies because the return on investment is high. So unfortunately, a lot of pristine stretches of rivers, like hundreds of kilometers of rivers, have completely gone dry because the water is diverted through concrete channels and taken elsewhere, right, to the powerhouse. And the water now that used to flow through the river is now going through artificial concrete channels. The fish, the species, they die off. And unfortunately, that's negatively affecting the agriculture and the tourism sectors, because now you completely destroy the agriculture and tourism sectors in these areas. So that's another issue we are trying to tackle. And it's sad that sometimes these projects are considered as environmentally friendly and getting carbon credits, whereas they're ecologically destructive. And it's sad to see that carbon credits being given to these projects that actually destroy the ecosystem. We've written to, the UN organizations, UNCCC, I believe, and unfortunately, they are kind of in a denial mode. But it's sad to see the ecosystem being destroyed through the use of carbon credits. Now, and in addition to the mini hydro projects, the third most destructive is building of new roads through the rainforest, and then, of course, hotels inside the forest. And this is where actually talking about hotels, though, as more tourists come to the country, I hope that before a tourist selects a particular hotel, that maybe they can do some research to make sure that the hotel is not inside the forest itself. Because, of course, a lot of people like a hotel inside the forest because it seems, they can enjoy nature better, right? But it's destructive to the forest. A lot of these hotels not only pollute, of course, there's deforestation, pollution, but not just solid waste pollution, but also noise and light pollution. A lot of times people don't think about this, but light pollution and noise pollution are really big issues, especially in a rainforest area. The animals cannot and won't tolerate that. And unfortunately, we do see some hotels being built inside, even in sinharaja rainforest. And I hope that when people look to visit these areas, they do some research ahead of time and pick a hotel outside the forest, right? Don't disturb the forest, but go and visit the forest, but don't, contribute towards the destruction of the forest.
Do you know there's this quote and it says something like, visit nature, take nothing but photographs and leave nothing but footprints. And there's this whole respect for nature, like leave it how you found it. And I think it's very important that you raised this issue. Got this whole ecotourism going on right now where it's encouraging package holiday people and tourists to be more environmentally conscious about how their visit to that space might be affecting the wildlife or the surrounding environment. So thank you so much for mentioning this very, very important factor, because it starts with us, doesn't it? And as much as we want to do good, we are living in this capitalistic system that is influencing unsustainable movements. All of these things that you speak of with these companies and what's going on, we're living in a very unsustainable way of being on this planet. And it goes down to the same root causes at the end of the day. These ripples are going on all over the world, in different factors with different forest habitats, but it's always down to the same thing. It's unsustainable movement. So we want to encourage sustainability.
As a tourist, though, you have a lot of power, because if you go to these hotels and if you see that they are either polluting, like whether it's solid waste pollution or whether it's light pollution or sound pollution, be vocal about it, or confront the administration and say, okay, I don't like this. I came here to have a peaceful connect with nature, but I see there's a lot of noise pollution. Because sometimes and I've been in these situations myself as well. Some hotels that might call themselves nature resort or nature whatever, right? Eco hotel. But sometimes they allow a lot of these so-called day tourists who, like, they come in the morning, they have a nice time, and and then they go leave at night. But a lot of times they come and make a lot of noise. I mean, they sing a lot of songs. And of course, I'm a musician myself. It's okay to sing songs, but sometimes they would go to these beautiful, like, nature retreat areas and put a lot of loud music. And I was actually in a situation where I was there myself trying to enjoy nature, but I couldn't even see any bird or even a crow because there was so much noise pollution. So my whole trip, my whole experience, I was so disappointed. And if you come across situations like that where you see noise pollution, or sometimes it could be light pollution, right? You might be there's too much light in forest, close to the forest, right? Or solid waste pollution, or anything like that. Confront the hotel owners, and maybe you can write reviews, and that way in the future tourists know that, okay, which hotels care about the environment that they are in, and which hotels really are there just to make money.
That is so right on, Sriyantha. I mean, it's the power of the consumer. isn't it? And I'm so glad that you highlighted personal research, and it's about doing your research and speaking to local organizations and other travelers. And we have power within a consumer, and many people on the ground are putting their ripples out there. So thank you for mentioning that. But I find it quite ironic, that someone would go all the way to the other side of the world and put blaring music on in the rainforest. I mean, the rainforest itself has its own amazing music that is like ever changing throughout the day. And there's nothing, I miss that sound so much. It stays with me in my heart, the music of the forest, honestly.
Yes. Interestingly enough, actually, and not only you get different natural sounds during daytime versus nighttime, right? During daytime, you hear the birds sing. During nighttime, you hear the amphibians, the frogs. Yes. And actually, sometimes the frogs, their chorus is actually more pleasing even than the birds. If you go to the rainforest of Sri Lanka, they have so many different sounds and tones that actually rival, and I think sometimes even better than the birds.
Some of them sound like cows, they they sound like cows, the frogs.
Yeah, but if you ever experience the nighttime in rainforest in Sri Lanka, yes, you will hear a lot of different music of these amphibians, and it's quite amazing.
It really is. So, Sriyantha, are there any more positive messages you wish to share before we end?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, Rainforest Protectors Trust, we are trying to purchase and protect privately held forest lands to create a buffer zone, a protected buffer zone for sinharaja rainforest. And unfortunately, today there is no protected buffer zone, and continuously the forest is being encroached for cultivation purpose and other land grabs. So, through the trust, we are hoping to expand the protected buffer zone and also allow volunteers to come and help us. So we are hoping to start this conservation and education center soon. And we have a crowdfunding project going on Global Giving organization. So I hope that you, all your viewers, can visit our website. So the website is rainforestprotectorstrust.org. So visit our website, go through our past projects and current projects, and learn more about the threats to sinharaja World Heritage Rainforest and what we are trying to do to protect it. And hope you will spread the news and contribute as much as you can towards our cause. I know there's a lot of causes, and ours might be just one, but I hope that you will consider Sri Lanka being so many endemic species, not only birds. A lot of times people forget about the fish. So we actually, on our website, rainforestprotectorstrust.org, you can find some of these endemic species we've listed. So if you want to learn more about our endemic birds and fish and the threats they face, you can go to our website as well to learn about them and support our current projects. So I hope you will, as I mentioned, spread the news and support us in the future.
Thank you so much for coming on to the Environment and Conservation Show and sharing the work and the missions of the Rainforest Protectors Trust in Sri Lanka. Sriyantha, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and good luck with your programs in the future.
Because when you stop to think what nature's given, don't you think it might be time to give some back?
Thank you so much, Sriyantha, for coming on to the Environment and Conservation Show on UK Health Radio and sharing the work of the Rainforest Protectors Trust. What I found quite important that Sriyantha pointed out during the interview was the power of the consumer and the power of your voice. See, when you, as a tourist, visit these places and you travel there, you're not only leaving a carbon footprint, but it's very important to research any venues or tours that you're going on. Make sure that they're, environmentally friendly, that they have an awareness to how they're going to impact impact the wildlife around them. So thank you very much, Sriyantha, for reminding us and pointing out the power of our choices. If you would like to financially support the work of the Rainforest Protectors Trust, you can donate to different aspects of their projects. For example, you can donate to help build the Rainforest Conservation and Education Centre. You can donate to help support the Rainforest Guardians in Sri Lanka. Your donation can also help to protect 11-acre montane forest in the Sinharaja Delgoda Biodiversity Corridor. You can also donate to protect 27 acres of forest in the buffer zone of the Sinharaja World Heritage Rainforest. Find out more via the rainforestprotectorstrust.org website. It's very exciting to hear of the aims of opening a conservation and educational centre. I firmly believe in the education and knowledge of natural habitats and ecosystems. Though many of us today are living and growing up in urban environments, it's very important to keep a close relationship to these ecosystems. The Rainforest Protectors Trust focuses on saving real acres of rainforest in Sri Lanka through purchase and permanent conservation of privately held forest lands adjoining Sinharaja World Heritage Rainforest, creating a protected buffer zone for Sinharaja Rainforest and a biodiversity forest corridor to connect fragmented patches of forest to the north of Sinharaja is a top priority aimed at preventing encroachment of forest and deforestation. Having lost more than 95% of the original rainforests during the past century, we are fighting against a time to protect what is remaining in this vital ecosystem, which is home to most of Sri Lanka's endemic and endangered flora and fauna. You can find out more about the work of the Rainforest Protectors Trust via the website. Please visit www.rainforestprotectorstrust.org. My name is Yara. You can connect with me via Wild Eye Adventures, connect on social media platforms, and if you're on Instagram, please connect with the Environment and Conservation Show new Instagram page. You can find us at environment_conservation_show. Find out more about the work I do at www.wildeyeadventures.com. Trees, rainforests, and the protection and conservation of these habitats are very close to my heart. And on the Environment and Conservation Show, we are very keen to raise awareness about reforestation, rewilding, and sustainable projects. If you would like to be interviewed for the show, please connect with myself. Email contact@wildeyeadventures.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and I'll catch you next time.